The Andorian Confederacy was on the edge of destruction. Their homeworlds, once full of life, now burned under the endless assault of the Krith swarm. The Krith were not like ordinary enemies. They were not soldiers with banners nor diplomats with words. They were a tide of claws, teeth, and hunger. No fleet had stood against them and survived. Entire colonies had fallen in silence, with only drifting wreckage left to speak of what had happened. The Andorian leaders gathered in their last stronghold, voices sharp with fear. Their defenses were broken, their fleets shattered, and their people dying in millions. They had only one option left. They sent a message into the void, a desperate plea to anyone who could hear. The message was not polished, nor was it diplomatic. It was raw, simple, and filled with despair. "We are dying. Help us if you can." The message traveled far beyond their borders. Many species heard it, but none dared to answer. To fight the Krith was madness, and to help the Andorians was to share their fate. Silence was the only reply they received until a signal arrived that no one had expected. From the edge of unknown space, a human warship answered. The ship was not large by galactic standards, but its presence carried a weight that no one could explain. The Andorians had never heard of humans. Their records held no mention of them. Yet the humans answered without hesitation. They promised aid, not in months or years, but in days. For the Andorian Council, this was as shocking as it was unsettling. Captain Daniel Harris sat in the command chair of his ship as the reply was sent. His crew moved with steady focus around him. To them, the Andorian plea was not a burden but a call to action. Daniel's voice was calm, steady, and certain as he spoke. Set course for the coordinates. Prepare for battle readiness. There was no debate among his officers. Their loyalty was clear and their purpose was firm. They did not come for glory. They came because someone needed help. When the Andorians received the confirmation, confusion spread among their leaders. Who were these humans who dared to answer when no one else would? Why did they move so quickly without question? The counselors whispered doubts to one another. Perhaps the humans were foolish. Perhaps they were desperate themselves. Or perhaps they were hiding something dangerous behind their calm words. Commander Laura Mitchell, second in command of the human ship, studied the Andorian transmissions with sharp eyes. She saw the fear, the despair, the hopelessness in their voices, yet she did not share it. To her, the enemy was not an unstoppable force, but a challenge to be met. She relayed tactical data to Daniel, her voice carrying quiet strength. The Krith are numerous, but they are not invincible. We have faced worse. Melissa Carter, the chief engineer, checked over the ship's systems, making small adjustments with practiced skill. She knew every circuit, every engine pulse, and every hidden weakness of the ship. To her, preparation was survival. She spoke little, but her actions spoke volumes. Where others panicked, she worked. Her steady hands built the confidence of those around her. Lieutenant Aaron Brooks, in charge of ground forces, drilled his soldiers even as the ship made its way to Andorian space. The soldiers moved with discipline, their training sharp and their minds clear. They were not shaken by the tales of the Krith. They did not speak of fear. They spoke only of readiness, of duty, of standing together when the storm came. The journey to the Andorian lines took 3 days. To the humans, the time was short. To the Andorians, every hour felt like a year. As the Krith pressed closer, the council waited with trembling voices and frayed nerves. When the human ship finally arrived, it slipped into their system without grand display, without banners or horns. It came quietly, steadily, like a predator that did not need to announce itself. The Andorians watched the human ship on their screens. It was not covered in the glittering armor of their allies, nor did it carry the enormous size of their war barges. It was smaller, darker, and sharper in design. Its presence was unnerving in its simplicity. The council had expected saviors, perhaps, or fools. What they saw instead was something they could not name. Daniel Harris opened a channel to the Andorian flagship. His voice came through steady and calm. "We are here. Share with us the details of your enemy." The Andorian leaders hesitated. They had expected questions of payment, of alliances, of promises, but the humans asked for nothing except the strength of their foe. It was not what they had prepared for. Their main counselor, weary and broken, finally spoke. "The Krith swarm numbers in the millions. They devour all they touch. We cannot hold them back. Our fleets are gone." Laura Mitchell leaned close to Daniel, her eyes narrowing as she listened. She whispered quietly, "They believe the enemy is unstoppable. That will be their weakness. Daniel gave a single nod before speaking again. We will hold the line with you. Prepare your people. The Krith are not invincible. The words sent ripples through the council. The humans did not sound like saviors. They sounded like soldiers, as if this was not a hopeless battle but an ordinary task. The Andorians did not understand. How could they fight an enemy that consumed entire worlds without pause? And yet when they looked into the calm eyes of the humans, doubt began to shift into something else. Hope, thin and fragile, began to form. As the first day of waiting passed, the Andorians sent observers aboard the human ship. What they saw unsettled them further. The humans prepared with silent efficiency. Every soldier moved with purpose. Every system was checked, double-checked, and adjusted without complaint. There was no sign of panic, no voices raised in fear. Even their youngest soldiers carried themselves with discipline, eyes hard with resolve. One Andorian whispered to another, "They do not act like men. They act like predators." And so the plea for help had been answered. But the Andorians, even in their fear and desperation, began to wonder what kind of beings had come to their aid. The humans were not like the others. They had not hesitated. They had not bargained. They had come as if war was their element, as if this was the place they belonged. In the silent space between stars, the human ship waited. The Andorians prayed, and the Krith swarm drew closer, unaware that something new now stood in their path. The Andorian flagship was silent when the humans arrived. The survivors expected a pause, a speech, or demands for reward. But what came from the human ship was only a direct request. They asked for maps, numbers, and the strength of the Krith swarm. There was no talk of payment or treaties. It was as if humans cared about nothing else but the battle ahead. Commander Laura Mitchell led the first diplomatic team to the Andorian flagship. She stepped into their chamber with quiet confidence. Her dark eyes moved over the Andorian leaders, not with arrogance but with calm study. She listened to their words with patience, her face showing no fear. The Andorians had seen many envoys in their years, but none like her. She was not there to beg or threaten. She was there to understand. The Andorian council expected hesitation. They expected the humans to doubt themselves or at least ask for more time. Instead, Laura asked sharp questions. She wanted exact numbers of ships destroyed, the rate of the Krith advance, and the weaknesses in the Andorian defenses. Her voice was steady and clear, and she spoke as if defeat was not even a possibility. The Andorians were unsettled by this. They had never heard anyone speak of the Krith swarm in this way. One of the counselors, weary and trembling, finally asked, "Do you even understand what you face? The Krith cannot be stopped. They are endless. They will consume you as they consume us." Laura's reply was simple. Endless does not mean invincible. Her words spread through the chamber like a shockwave. The Andorians did not know whether to call her brave or foolish. But they could not deny that something in her voice made them believe her, if only for a moment. Meanwhile, back on the human ship, Captain Daniel Harris reviewed the incoming data. He stood over the display table, his hands resting calmly on the edge as the images of destruction filled the screens. Entire worlds gone, fleets turned to dust, and still his voice did not waver. "We will not let this swarm move further. We hold here," his officers responded without question. Melissa Carter worked late into the night, checking the ship's core systems, modifying the engines to squeeze out every possible advantage. She did not need orders to know what to do. Every adjustment she made increased their chances of survival. To her, the ship was not just a vessel but a weapon, and she would sharpen it until it cut through the enemy. Aaron Brooks drilled his ground forces with unrelenting focus. He taught them how to move in squads, how to cover one another, and how to react to swarming enemies. The Andorians who observed the training were struck by the discipline. The humans did not waste movement or energy. Every motion was precise, every formation exact. They trained not as individuals but as one machine, every soldier a part of something greater. The Andorians could not help but whisper to each other. They fight as if this is not war but life itself. On the second day, Laura Mitchell returned to the Andorian Council with Daniel by her side. The humans had studied the enemy and they spoke of plans. The council was nervous, their voices sharp and broken. They wanted promises, assurances, anything to quiet their fear. But Daniel's voice was calm and firm as he spoke. "You called for help. We are here. We cannot promise safety. We cannot promise that none will fall, but we will stand and we will fight. That is what matters. The Andorians were struck by his honesty. He did not offer false hope. He did not tell them the war would be easy. But in his calm words, they felt something stronger than promises. They felt certainty. It was a certainty that came not from arrogance but from experience. The Andorians began to wonder who these humans were. What kind of people could look at the Krith swarm and speak as though it was just another challenge to overcome? They searched their records again, hoping to find some trace of humanity in their archives. But there was nothing. It was as if humans had risen from the void itself, carrying war in their blood. Late into the night, Andorian observers remained aboard the human ship. They watched as soldiers checked their weapons with quiet focus. They saw engineers crawling through the ship's structure, ensuring no weakness remained. They heard officers speak to each other in steady, measured tones. Even when fatigue showed on their faces, the humans pressed on. To the Andorians, it was not natural. No one should face such a nightmare with so little fear. One observer finally whispered, "They do not act like those who come to save us. They act like those who belong to the fire of battle." The next day, a small Krith raiding force breached the outer defenses of the system. It was not a full attack, only a scout wing, but it was enough to bring panic to the Andorian Council. Alarms blared, voices rose in fear, and ships scrambled in disorder. The humans, however, reacted differently. Daniel gave a single order: engage. The human ship moved with sudden speed, its engines flaring as it cut through space. The Andorians watched in awe as the humans coordinated their attack. Their weapons fired in precise rhythm, tearing through the raiding force with terrifying accuracy. Where Andorian fleets had fallen in chaos, the humans fought with calm order. They did not waste fire. They did not chase blindly. Every strike was planned, every move deliberate. Within minutes, the Krith raiders were destroyed. Silence fell across the Andorian command chamber. For the first time in many years, they had seen the Krith defeated so easily. It was not just victory that stunned them. It was the way the humans had done it. Without fear, without hesitation, with cold precision. After the battle, Daniel spoke to the Andorian leaders again. This was only a beginning. The swarm is larger, stronger, but this proves they can be broken. Remember this when fear comes again. The council looked at him with new eyes. The fear in their voices was still there, but beneath it, something else had begun to grow. Respect, and perhaps something more dangerous. Dependence. Laura Mitchell stood at Daniel's side as they left the chamber. She looked at him and said quietly, "They will follow us now, whether they wish to or not." Daniel only nodded. "Then we show them what it means to stand." That night, the Andorian people whispered of the humans. The rumors spread from ship to ship, from station to station. Some called them saviors, others called them reckless. But all agreed on one thing: the humans were different. They had answered the call when no one else would, and in their calm eyes and steady voices, there was something the galaxy had not seen in a long time. The humans did not come as heroes. They came as warriors. And as the Krith swarm drew closer, the Andorians began to wonder if they had called not for help, but for something far more dangerous. The days passed quickly as the Krith swarm moved closer. The Andorians lived in fear, but the humans prepared with steady determination. Their ship was alive with motion. Every soldier, every officer, and every engineer knew what to do. There was no panic, no wasted words. The humans worked as though they had been born for this kind of war. Lieutenant Aaron Brooks pushed his ground forces harder with each passing day. He made them train in the narrow halls of the ship and in the virtual fields of battle. The Andorians who watched could not believe what they saw. The human soldiers did not break when they were tired. They did not complain when drills were repeated again and again. They obeyed every order, moving like a single body. To the Andorians, they looked less like soldiers and more like predators waiting for the hunt. Melissa Carter worked deep in the engine rooms, her face smudged with grease and her hands steady. She modified shield arrays, reinforced power conduits, and rechecked every weapon system. Her voice was calm whenever she gave instructions to her team. She told them exactly what to do, and they followed without hesitation. The ship grew sharper under her care, like a blade being polished before battle. To Melissa, nothing mattered except making sure the humans were ready to fight. On the bridge, Captain Daniel Harris and Commander Laura Mitchell studied the swarm's movements. The Krith were advancing faster than expected, consuming asteroid bases and abandoned colonies as they came. Daniel's face was calm as always. but his crew could feel the weight of his decisions. Laura gave him quiet reports, her tone steady and sharp. Together they formed a picture of the enemy, piece by piece. The Andorians had described the Krith as endless chaos, but the humans saw patterns. They saw weaknesses hidden inside the tide of destruction. One evening, an Andorian observer finally asked Laura, "Why do you not fear them?" "They destroy everything. They will destroy you too." Laura's reply was quiet but firm, "Because they can bleed. And if they can bleed, they can die." The Andorian said nothing more, but he carried those words back to his people. Soon the phrase began to spread through the fleet. For the first time, the Krith were spoken of not as gods of death, but as enemies that could be defeated. When the first major battle came, the Andorians braced for the end. The Krith swarm entered the system like a black storm, their ships twisting and clawing forward in waves. The Andorian defenses shook with fear, but the humans did not wait. Daniel gave his order with calm certainty. "Engage." The human ship moved forward with frightening precision. Its weapons lit the void, cutting into the swarm with exact strikes. Every shot counted. Where the Andorians fired wildly in desperation, the humans fired with purpose. Their cannons tore through the thickest clusters. Their missiles struck at weak points, and their fighters moved like hawks through a flock. The swarm howled in numbers, but the humans answered with fire. Aaron Brooks led a small team onto an Andorian station that had been overrun by the Krith. The corridors were filled with broken metal and the shadows of monsters. The Krith creatures tore through walls and crawled across ceilings, but Aaron and his soldiers moved without fear. Their rifles burned with steady bursts, their blades struck with perfect aim. They did not fight with panic, but with cold efficiency. Every shot was measured. Every kill was clean. The Andorian survivors on the station could not believe what they were seeing. They had watched their own soldiers fall again and again to the swarm. Yet here were humans, fewer in number, holding the line with unshakable resolve. One Andorian whispered as he hid behind the human squad, "They fight as if death does not touch them." Back in space, Melissa Carter's adjustments made a difference. The human ship absorbed blow after blow from the swarm but did not break. Energy flowed through the shields with perfect balance, and weapons cycled faster than any Andorian design had ever managed. Melissa's voice came steady over the comms, reporting each system's status with calm clarity. She did not boast, she did not celebrate, but the ship itself was proof of her skill. For hours the battle raged. The Krith attacked in endless waves, their numbers seeming without limit. But the humans did not tire. They adapted. Every time the swarm shifted its tactics, Daniel and Laura countered. They learned quickly, as if each moment of the battle was a lesson. The Andorians had never seen anything like it. To them, the Krith were chaos itself. To the humans, chaos was only another pattern waiting to be broken. Finally, as the last of the swarm ships fell apart in fire, silence returned to the system. The Andorians stood in shock. Their fleets had survived. Their stations still stood. The Krith had been beaten back, not by chance, but by human hands. The council gathered once more, their voices hushed and uncertain. They looked at Daniel Harris, Laura Mitchell, Aaron Brooks, and Melissa Carter. These humans had done what no one else had. They had turned the tide of battle. But the Andorians were no longer sure what to call them. Were they saviors, or were they something far more dangerous? Daniel spoke simply. "This was only one battle. The swarm will return, but now you know they can be stopped. And we will stop them." The Andorians listened in silence. They wanted to celebrate, to weep in relief, but they could not, because as they looked at the humans, they felt something deeper than gratitude. They felt fear, not fear of defeat, but fear of what they had brought into their galaxy. The humans had come without hesitation. They had fought without mercy, and they had won without doubt. To the Andorians, this victory was a blessing. But in the shadows of their thoughts, a single question began to grow. What kind of beings were these humans who thrived in the heart of war? Word of the human victory spread quickly through the Andorian fleet. For the first time in years, their people felt the faint touch of hope. But along with hope came something else, whispers of fear. The humans had fought the Krith swarm not with desperation but with precision. They had not hesitated. They had not shown doubt, and when the battle ended, they did not celebrate. They simply prepared for the next fight. To the Andorians, it was both comforting and terrifying. Captain Daniel Harris remained calm in the days after the battle. On the bridge of his ship, he stood with hands behind his back, watching the stars. His crew moved around him with steady purpose. They did not act like victors. They acted like soldiers waiting for the next storm. Commander Laura Mitchell often stood beside him, reviewing enemy data, her voice sharp but calm. Together, they studied the swarm's movements and predicted where the next battle would fall. The Andorian Council invited Daniel and Laura to speak before them. The chamber was full of nervous leaders, their eyes restless and voices low. They wanted reassurance, promises that the humans could continue to defend them. But Daniel's words were not promises. He spoke plainly, without flourish. The Krith swarm is wounded, but it is not gone. You must strengthen your defenses. We will fight, but you must prepare as well. The counselors shifted uncomfortably. They had expected grand speeches or bold vows. Instead, the human captain spoke with simple certainty, as if war was only work to be done. Some found comfort in his words. Others found unease. Laura added only a few lines, but her voice carried strength. If you follow fear, you will lose. If you follow order, you will survive. Choose carefully. The Andorians left the meeting unsettled. The humans had saved them, but they felt no warmth in their presence. The humans were not friends, not allies in the way they had hoped. They were something colder, something sharper. On the ship, Aaron Brooks continued training his soldiers. He made them practice again and again, not because he doubted them, but because he knew the swarm would return stronger. His men and women obeyed without question, their faces calm even when exhaustion weighed them down. The Andorians who watched could not understand such discipline. They had always fought with passion, with fear and anger driving them. The humans fought with neither. They fought as if discipline itself was their weapon. Melissa Carter worked in silence, repairing the damage from the last battle and improving the ship's systems. Her hands moved with certainty as she replaced coils, strengthened plating, and tested shield harmonics. When Andorian engineers came to assist, they found themselves struggling to keep up. Melissa did not stop to explain every detail. She gave short, clear orders and expected them to follow. Slowly, the Andorians realized that she was not only skilled but relentless. She did not rest until every system was ready. They began to whisper that she worked like a machine. Soon, another Krith fleet entered the system. This time it was larger, more organized. The swarm had learned from their first defeat. The Andorians panicked. Some ships fled, others hesitated. But the humans did not waver. Daniel gave his command as calmly as if he were ordering a meal. Hold formation. Strike at their center. The human ship cut into the swarm with frightening power. Their weapons were not the most advanced in the galaxy, but they were used with deadly skill. Every shot struck with purpose. Every maneuver was calculated. The Andorians, scattered and afraid, tried to follow, but their disarray was clear. Only when the humans forced open a path did they begin to rally. On the ground, Aaron Brooks once again led a strike team. The Krith had landed on an Andorian mining world, their claws tearing through rock and metal. The Andorian defenders had broken quickly, but the humans moved in with cold precision. Aaron's squad cleared tunnels one by one, every corner checked, every room secured. The Krith roared and charged, but the humans did not falter. Their fire was steady, their blades exact. The Andorian survivors followed behind in awe, whispering that the humans fought like shadows. In orbit, Melissa Carter pushed the ship's engines beyond their limits. She rerouted power again and again, keeping the shield strong while weapons burned through enemy after enemy. Sweat covered her face, but her voice was calm over the comms. All systems stable. Keep pressing. Her steady words gave strength to those who heard them. The battle raged for hours. Slowly, the tide turned. The humans held the swarm at bay, then pushed them back piece by piece. At last, the Krith fleet broke and retreated into the void. The system was safe again, though the wreckage of ships filled the stars. When the battle ended, the Andorians cheered. Their people shouted with joy, voices trembling with relief, but the humans did not join the celebration. On their ship, there was no cheering, no laughter. They simply repaired damage, reset weapons, and prepared for the next fight. To them, victory was not a reason to celebrate. It was a step toward the next battle. This silence unsettled the Andorians more than the battle itself. They had called for saviors, but what they had received was something else. The humans were not saviors. They were warriors, and warriors did not stop. Rumors spread quickly. Some Andorians called the humans protectors. Others whispered that they were more dangerous than the swarm itself. Stories of their discipline, their calm, and their cold efficiency grew with every telling. Mothers told their children that the humans had come from a world harsher than any other. Soldiers whispered that the humans did not fear death because they had already mastered it. The council met again. Voices divided. Some wanted to trust the humans completely, to bind them with alliances and treaties. Others feared them, worried that once the swarm was gone, the humans would turn their strength elsewhere. No agreement was reached. Only one truth remained clear. The humans had changed everything. Late that night, Laura Mitchell stood on the bridge beside Daniel. The stars stretched before them, quiet and endless. She spoke softly, her eyes fixed on the void. They look at us with gratitude, but also with fear. Do you think they will ever understand? Daniel's reply was simple. They don't need to understand. They only need to survive. And so the humans prepared again. The Andorians repaired their ships, whispered their fears, and clung to the fragile hope the humans had given them. But deep inside, every one of them knew the truth. The Krith swarm was not their only worry anymore. Because when they had sent their desperate plea for help, they had not only brought saviors, they had brought the most dangerous beings the galaxy had ever seen. And those beings were human. The Krith swarm, though defeated in the last battle, was far from gone. Their retreat was only temporary, and all signs indicated they were regrouping for an even larger attack. The Andorians prepared desperately, but their confidence was fragile. The humans, however, remained calm and methodical. To them, preparation was not panic. It was the work of survival. Captain Daniel Harris gathered his crew on the bridge for the final strategy. His voice was steady, commanding attention without shouting. The Krith will return. They are dangerous, yes, but they are not unbeatable. We know their weaknesses. We will hit them where it hurts. Commander Laura Mitchell displayed maps of the swarm's movement. Every detail was marked, every pattern studied. She pointed to clusters of ships, to supply lines, and to unprotected planets. We will strike with precision, she said. We will cut their strength quickly, and we will not give them a chance to recover. Aaron Brooks drilled the ground forces relentlessly. Every soldier trained for hours, practicing maneuvers, teamwork, and discipline. The Andorian observers could not believe the dedication and focus of the human soldiers. Even when exhaustion set in, the humans continued without complaint. Their determination inspired the Andorians, but it also reminded them of something terrifying. The humans thrived in the face of danger. Melissa Carter worked late into the night, ensuring the ship's systems were perfect. She checked weapons, reinforced shields, and optimized engines. Nothing was left to chance. When Andorian engineers offered assistance, she gave precise instructions and expected them to follow without hesitation. Her calm, relentless work left a deep impression. The Andorians began to understand that humans did not merely react to threats, they dominated them. As the Krith returned, their numbers massive and their aggression fierce, the humans took command without hesitation. Daniel Harris issued orders with precision. Laura Mitchell calculated every movement, and Aaron Brooks led the ground squads with unflinching confidence. The Andorians followed, sometimes with difficulty, but they began to understand the rhythm of human warfare. The battle raged for hours across space and planets. The Krith attacked in overwhelming waves, but the humans were relentless. They cut through the swarm with skill and discipline, never wasting energy, never hesitating. Every move was deliberate, every strike calculated. The Andorians watched in awe and fear as the humans dismantled what had once seemed unstoppable. On a critical world, Aaron Brooks led a squad to defend a research facility vital to the Andorian war effort. The Krith clawed and tore at the walls, but the humans moved like shadows through the corridors. They used cover, fire, and blades with deadly precision. Every human soldier seemed to know exactly where to be, when to strike, and how to survive. Andorian defenders, inspired but terrified, followed them closely, trying to match their calm efficiency. In orbit, Melissa Carter kept the human ship at peak performance. The shields held as enemy weapons struck again and again. Power flowed through weapons and engines seamlessly. She monitored every system, adjusted every output, and communicated clearly with the bridge. Her quiet voice, reporting facts without emotion, gave confidence to the crew even in the heat of battle. Captain Daniel Harris coordinated every engagement, moving his forces like pieces on a board. Laura Mitchell predicted the enemy's movements and relayed critical data. The humans did not fight blindly. They fought with intelligence, patience, and ruthlessness. When the Krith tried to regroup, the humans struck again, leaving no chance for recovery. Hours passed, and slowly, the tide turned decisively. The Krith, once overwhelming, were driven back. Their ships were destroyed in numbers that had once seemed impossible to achieve. The Andorians, exhausted but alive, began to understand the full scope of the humans' power. They had not only survived, they had learned something terrifying about their saviors. The humans were not bound by fear. They fought as if danger was fuel, not a threat. When the last of the Krith was defeated, silence fell across the battlefield. The Andorians, seeing their people safe and their worlds intact, cheered. But the humans remained silent. They repaired damage, assessed their forces, and prepared for the next potential threat. Victory was not a moment for celebration. It was another step in an endless journey of vigilance. The Andorian Council gathered to express their gratitude. They wanted to honor the humans, to celebrate their bravery, to offer alliances and rewards. Captain Daniel Harris and his officers received thanks quietly, nodding with measured acknowledgement. They did not seek praise or titles. Their presence was enough, their actions far greater than any words. Laura Mitchell addressed the council. "We do not fight for glory," she said simply. "We fight because it is necessary. That is the way we survive." The Andorians understood, though uneasily. They had asked for help and they had received it. But in the calm eyes and precise movements of the humans, they saw something deeper. These were not saviors in the traditional sense. They were warriors, beings who thrived in the heart of danger and did not flinch. Their power was a warning as much as it was a blessing. As the humans departed to continue their patrols and prepare for future threats, the Andorians whispered among themselves. They spoke of bravery, of skill, but also of fear. What had arrived in their system was not merely help. It was a force beyond comprehension, disciplined, unyielding, and dangerous. Captain Daniel Harris looked back at the Andorian worlds from the bridge of his ship. His voice was calm as he spoke to his crew. "They are safe for now. But the galaxy is vast and danger will return. We must always be ready." Laura Mitchell, standing beside him, nodded. "We showed them what it means to fight. But now they know the humans are more than their saviors. They are a force the galaxy cannot ignore." Aaron Brooks and Melissa Carter continued their work, each fulfilling their roles with precision. They did not seek recognition. They sought only readiness, survival, and the discipline to meet whatever came next. The Andorians, watching from their planets and ships, realized the truth. Humanity had answered a desperate plea for help, but in doing so, they had revealed themselves as something far more than allies. They were predators in the realm of war, creatures who thrived on danger and turned fear into strength. And the galaxy, now aware of their arrival, would never be the same. The humans departed silently, leaving behind saved worlds, inspired allies, and a galaxy filled with awe and fear. The Andorians knew one thing with certainty. When humans fought, victory was not just possible, it was inevitable. And with that realization came a deeper, unspoken fear. The most dangerous beings had arrived, and they were human.